Welcome, everyone. We will give others a few more minutes to join, but while we wait, I can answer some of the questions that were submitted during our registration. I'll give you a heads up that today we are going to have a lot of additional resources that'll be linked in the chat. So be sure to have the chat open. And then if I mention something that has a link in the chat and you want that link, just be sure to open it in another tab right away so it doesn't get lost in the upcoming links. So the first question that was submitted was about connecting multiple sets of data for analysis. Now, we almost always touch on this in our webinars, but today actually we don't touch on it at all. So we're going to link some resources for you that will be helpful in learning how to connect multiple sets of data. The number one thing I would recommend is actually checking out our investment research tutorial. It will walk you through step-by-step how to link data, how to analyze the data using some sample data. So I would recommend going through that. And then once you do that, use your own data. And then once you have questions on your own data, post in the community forum. Again, we'll link that, or email support. Posting in the community forum is great because all of our users can learn from questions that are submitted. But if you do have data specific questions, or you can't share screenshots of your data and you don't have dummy data, then just email me at support@getgrist.com and I can help you as well. Again, investment research tutorial is a great starting point. The next one was how to match fuzzy match names function, similar to the Excel Power Query. We don't have anything that is exactly like the fuzzy match, but we do have reference columns which will link data, and I think that'll be really useful in what you're trying to do. So we'll link an article on reference columns and then an article on references and lookup functions. So once you have that reference, you can actually use lookups to pull some more information. So I think that'll be useful for you to get started. And then our third question was, what does Grist add to the traditional spreadsheet? And there are three major things that we have over a traditional spreadsheet. The first being relational data, and relational data uses reference columns to link related data. Here, we can also link tables. So a visual representation of this is I have this sales rep. If I click on a new sales rep, you'll see that this next table will update. So if I select Willa, Willa has 2 months worth of sales. And when I click the months, you'll see this bottom sales updates with the sales from that selected month. So I can select Lance, month 7, and then I can see the data there. And so that's the biggest way we differ. The next is custom layout. So here you see a nice little dashboard. Here's another one. You can add custom widgets. You can add tables, cards, graphs, and then create this layout that's useful to you. And then the third one is access rules. So we have access rules, which allows you to restrict what users see. And so I'm going to click into it. It's in the bottom left here. We already have rules set up on this table. So I'm just going to view as one of the users. We'll look at as Harry. And you'll see on the left here, now I only have one page available. The rest are hidden. Harry sees data for himself here and sees data below. He can see revenue information for the other sales reps, but everything else is censored. He can't see anything. He can only see his own information. So access rules is incredibly useful. We'll link an article on access rules. We also have multiple webinars that touch on access rules. I didn't link them. I didn't want to overwhelm with links, but just check out our webinar playlist on YouTube. We will link a webinar on creating productive layouts, and that will cover basically let me go back to viewing this myself. It'll cover how to set up these dashboards. But from that webinar, you can just travel back to the channel and then view our other webinars. And there's a couple access rules ones that are incredibly helpful. Anytime I need to set up access rules, I actually go back to them for help. Okay, looks like we got a lot of people on, so we will get started. So hello to everyone and welcome to our March webinar. Today is the second webinar in our Working with Your Data series. So all of our previous webinars can be found on our YouTube channel. There is a dedicated playlist for our webinars, and a recording of this one will be added there as well in the near future, just a couple days. Maybe tomorrow, could be Monday. Doesn't typically take long, but because you are registered for it, you will get an email when the video is posted. So today we're going to learn some tips and tricks on data cleaning. We will be working with several templates from our template gallery, and we will post links to each template as we reference them throughout the webinar. We are going to have a lot of links today. We talk about a lot of additional resources. So be sure to have your chat open somewhere on your screen. I believe the chat button should be along the bottom of your Zoom screen. Once you click it, I think it just opens up on the side and stays there. You might be able to move it around. Mine looks different just because I'm sharing. But if you have questions to where it's at and you just want to post in the chat, Anais could certainly answer. But with that, if I mention that there's a link and you are interested in it, be sure to copy it and paste it somewhere or open it in another tab right away. I will do my best to pause after I mention a link so that you have time to go grab it before it gets covered by another link. So we'll start our webinar today with our class enrollment template, which we will link in the chat. I'll give y'all, if anyone needs it, a second to grab it. With our templates today, it's not critical that you open them. The ones I will be working on are slightly modified just to show how things work. So if you don't have any interest in the templates, don't feel like you need to rush to open those links. The first topic we are covering is adding values to a choice column. For those who are not familiar, choice type columns are for storing one of a set of values where you get to specify the available values. We will link our column types article in the chat for those who are interested in learning more. And I'll show you an example here in the enrollments table. So first, to change a column type, you open the Creator panel by clicking this vertical green bar on the right-hand side. In your two tabs, table and column, we're going to look at both of those tabs throughout today, but right now we're under the column specific tab. And here we have the column type choice. The thing with choice column types, you have these choices. Confirmed and waitlisted are the ones available. If I double click, I can choose from those. You can add one. Type it in, click save, and now it's available in the list. So that's just a quick overview of a choice column. The first tip that many of you may already know, but if you don't know this, it's going to save you tons of time. Let's say you have the data in Grist already. I have a modified version of class enrollment here where the status is just text. And if you already have the data in Grist and you want to convert a column to a choice column with a specific set of choices that might already be available in that column, you can do so. So you just open the Creator panel, change the column type to choice, and Grist is automatically going to guess that the existing values are choices you want. So I can click apply. I did want these two choices. You can still edit and you can add new choices. You can remove choices. You could edit how they're written. You can also edit the color. So a lot you can still do with it. It's just the fact that as soon as you click choice, it's going to convert your existing choices. Super quick. Don't feel like you need to set up a choice column before you import your data. Import the data and then your choice is already there. This also works with choice list. So if you have a list in a cell, any string, like under interests here, any string that's separated by this comma is going to be a separate choice. So if I convert this column to a choice list where you have multiple choices selected, it's going to separate those out again, just because it had that comma separating them. And so that's just a time saver when you're setting up a document, changing column types. A question that comes up regularly is around how to update a value that occurs multiple times in a column. Now, if it's a choice or a choice list column, the easy thing to do is just edit it here. And maybe you want all lowercase. It will update everywhere you see it. That's very simple. But if it's a text column, you can use the filter function. So I'm going to jump to our private tutor billing. We can link this one in the chat. Again, I have it slightly modified. I added the school column. It's not actually there. So I've listed students and the schools that they attend. Let's say a school name has changed recently. This list is short. If I wanted, I could scroll through and just update the school in each location. But if it was a much longer list, that would be difficult, a waste of time. I can just filter the column and just include the one I need to update. Add the new name. And then a little keyboard shortcut for you here. If you want this top value to be copied into all of the other cells in this filtered view, the keyboard shortcut is Control plus D, or if you're on a Mac, Command D, and it updates them. And so mine's filtered right now, so you can't see it. Let me update. And so there's the 4. Again, that was just click on the header to select the whole column, and then it's Control D, and it takes that top value and fills it in for the selected range. Some other struggles around data cleaning are just about making your data appear consistent. Let me open my modified class enrollment. So here we can see there's a lot of inconsistencies in how the data is entered into the table. So we have names here. Some are all lower, some are all upper. We have phone numbers with all different formatting. And we can actually use trigger formulas to manipulate entered values to give it a standard format. Trigger formulas are different than regular formulas because they're triggered by a specific action. Formulas are constantly checking for updates, but a trigger formula only checks for updates on a condition we set. So we'll link an article on trigger formulas, as well as a helpful webinar that covers formulas and trigger formulas if you want to learn more. Those are both in the chat for you. We will start with our first name column. So we want all names to follow title case, meaning the first letter is capitalized, all others are lowercase. So we can open the creator panel here. And under column behavior, we have the option to set a trigger formula. And then now we just enter our formula. Just a note, all of the functions we're about to use are found in our function reference guide. We will link it in the chat. It's incredibly handy to have this link and to know where to find this. Most times you want to enter a formula, you don't remember exactly what the formula is, but you know what you want to do. Just visit our function reference guide and you'll be able to find it. There's no need to memorize these. So to start, normally when you enter a formula, you would enter the name of the column which you want to pull data from. When you do this and you want to use a value from the column that you are entering data into, you're actually going to use the word value instead of using first name. If you use first name, it'll give you a circular reference error because it's not sure what you want to do. It's like, well, you're asking me to use this column, but it gets confused. So just use value if you're using the value that's being entered at that moment. So to use title case, we just call title. So it's dot title. Very simple formula, again, value. So you use the value that's being entered, and then dot title to tell it title case. Now we want to apply this on changes to this column. So you'll select current field. You'll even see that it's noted as data cleaning. So enter current field. Now, anytime someone types something into this, it will automatically assume title case. So here we go, I'll type my name. And it changes it to title case. Now you already have this existing data. So if you want to convert existing data, you can do that. Click the header to select the entire column. And then you're going to use 2 keyboard shortcuts to do this. So first you're going to use Control X or Command X if you're on a Mac, and that's going to cut the data from the column. And now you're going to paste it back in, which is Control V or Command V on Mac. And when you paste it back in, it's now all title case. And we can do this again for the last name. So again, we just, in the Creator panel on the right-hand side, we set trigger formula. We use value. We call the method dot title. We apply on record changes to that column, current field. And then again, to apply it, select the column header, Control X to copy, Control V to paste, and now it's all in title case. Yes. The question says the trigger will be applied to if it's coming from the API. I believe so, yeah. So we can also do lowercase, which I'm going to demonstrate on email. If we just want email to be consistent and make it all lowercase, that trigger formula, again, just value. We call the method, which is lower, all lowercase. Apply on changes to current field. And then we can cut and paste to apply. So now it's all lowercase. We're going to come back to phone because that's, I would say, the most complicated of these. And we're going to jump over to state. Again, you see that it's inconsistent, somewhere lower, somewhere upper. We want state totally capitalized. Same method. So we set trigger formula value dot upper. Apply on changes to that column. And then we can cut and paste to apply it to the existing records. And again, if you're entering a new record and you type in the state, it's going to automatically capitalize it as well. So it'll do it for new records as you go through. So let me just review those that we just did. So we have value.title. Title gives you title case. We have dot lower, which does all lowercase, and then upper, dot upper. And again, these are all available in the function reference. So if you forget, then you can find them there. If you have those edge cases, like where there's multiple capital letters, you can actually just edit the field. So we'll use McBride. So I'll do lower. It'll just capitalize the first one. You can go back because it's a trigger function. You can still, oh, actually it's gonna just edit it again. Yeah, definitely ask in the forum for that.
Well, You could edit it if you just stopped making it a trigger formula. That's a good
Yeah.
troubleshooting. Just stop
Yeah, you
making
can
it trigger.
uncheck it and then go back and then you can just reapply the trigger formula, and assuming you wouldn't come back and update that one because it is correct. And then you can just continue on having your trigger formula. So the last one is phone number. Again, this one's a little trickier. We actually have a phone number function that Dimitri wrote to make this easier. So the description is in the function reference guide, and it's phone format. All the details are here. So if you're using an international number, this will cover how to specify the formatting. We're just going to demonstrate US today, but the details are here in our function reference guide. So once again, set trigger formula. Now with this one, we call phone format first. So I type it, it's going to suggest it, and it tells you the information you need. So first, we just want to use the value that's entered, and then next the format is US. And that's it. We apply on changes to the current field. And then now when you enter a phone number, it will format it into US format. Again, just like before, I can apply it to the entire column. Select the column header to select the entire column, Control X to copy, Control or to cut, and then Control V to paste. And then now it formats them all into the US format. And so that's a nice way just to keep all of your data consistent, is to have these trigger formulas that apply to the current column. And again, when you're doing that, be sure to use value in place of where you would normally use the column name. Next, we are going to talk about the split function. So there's times when you need to split apart some data. For example, let's say you imported data with full name and you want to split this into a first name and a last name column. And you can do that using Python's split method. This splits a string at a specified separator and then returns a list of substrings. So we'll link the Python documentation on this in the chat if you want to learn more about it. So we're going to take a look again at our private tutor billing template. In the students table, we have this full name column that lists the student's name as last name, comma, first name. So we're going to use split to split this data and return either the first name or the last name. And we'll go ahead and add 2 new columns. Oops. To contain this info. So first, to enter a formula, you just hit the equals key and you see the screen equals, and now you're entering a formula. So first, we specify the column that contains the string of data we wish to split. So we select full name. Then we call the method, and that's .split. So next, we need to tell it where to split it. So this is a string. Whenever you are doing anything with a string, you use quotations. And so we want to split the string where the string includes a comma and a space. So the first substring would be everything to the left of that. And then the second substring would be everything to the right of that. And so we want to include the space in this split because we don't want the space to be included in the first name. Now, if I were just use this, it's going to list out the 2 substrings. Now, because it uses the same way to display 2 substrings, where it's a comma and a space and the next substring, they look the same. We need to tell it which substring we want. Now with Python, it starts counting at 0. So this would be 0, and this would be 1. So for first name, which is listed second, so that would be 1, position 1. And now we just do that again for last name. So again, equals key to start entering a formula. You tell it the column that contains the string you want to split. Now we call the split method. And where do we want to split it? Comma space. But now this time, we want the first item on the list, which is 0. And so now we've got the last name. So the biggest thing there is just remembering that with Python, it does start counting at 0, which is just, if you forget, it's just trial and error. If you type in 1 and now you've got the second item, you're like, oh yeah, that's right. Got to use 0 to get this first item. Jump back to the class enrollment table for our next bit is filling in missing or blank data. So it's a key part of data cleaning is filling in these blank values. And sometimes the trouble is just finding all of those blank fields. So in the status column here, I have some blank values. See one there. There's a few of them throughout. Now I could filter the status to view the blank statuses, which is easy here because I have no other filters applied. I have the entire table in this view, but I can also create a dashboard. So we're going to do that. So we will create a new page, but we are actually going to create a summary table of this enrollments table, but we're going to group by this status. So all the records that have confirmed are going to be grouped together. All the status records with waitlisted grouped together. All the blank ones grouped together. So I'm going to add a page. To create a summary table, we click the summation icon to the right of the data table we want to use. And then we select what we want to group by. So here I want to group by the status. So now I've got this handy summary table that tells me how many confirmed, how many blank fields I have, and how many waitlisted. It's not super helpful on its own, but we can add another table and link it so that when I select from here, I can see those 6 blank enrollments. So I'm going to add a new widget to the page. We want the table. We want the enrollments table. And then this time we're going to select by this summary table we just created. So when we select a status, we see all the enrollments with that status. Close that. There we go. So now if I could click confirmed, I see all of the records with a confirmed status. But here now I have all of the blank statuses. I can go through, contact these students, and let them know if they're confirmed, maybe they're waitlisted, and they will move off of this table and move into their appropriate waitlisted or confirmed status. And so again, all we did here was create a summary table grouped by status. And then we added a second table, the same table, just not a summary, and selected by that summary table to get that. So it's just an easier way to be able to go through any blank values, especially if you have one column that's really important to have filled in, or that starts blank, you need to fill it in later. Creating a little dashboard for that can be helpful. Last but not least is our trick on how to deduplicate data. So you may have a need to create a list of unique values from a column. This comes up a lot, and it actually can be super easy to do in Grist if you know the trick. And today everyone is going to become a deduping master. So I'm going to look at the event sponsors and attendees template. We'll link it in the chat. The one I'm using is slightly modified just to show this off. So here we have a list of registrations. Some names are duplicated just because people have registered for multiple events. So we want to create a contact list that is based on our registrations, but without all these duplicates. The trick to this is actually creating a summary table, and we are going to group it by first and last name. So we're using both because if we group by first name, there's going to be different people who share a first name. There's also different people who share a last name. So if you group by both, the first name, last name combo is now what makes that record unique. So anyone with the same first name and last name will then group together. So we will actually create a new page, create a summary table from registrations. And again, we're grouping by first name and last name to create that unique record. And now we're going to add our page. And so now we have this awesome list of all the unique names. We can see how many events these people have registered for. So you see that some of these people do appear twice, and now they're getting grouped together. So we're eliminating a lot of duplicates here. But unfortunately, we can't do a lot with this table. Everything is locked. Summary tables can only contain formula columns. And so that's not always helpful, but we can detach this. So to do that, you open the creator panel up here on the right-hand side. Now this time we're going to be in this table tab. And normally this opens to the widget tab. I've been in this, so it was already open to data. But navigate to this data tab. We see that the source data, this is all coming from the all registrations table. It's linked, it's grouped by first name, last name. Well, now we can detach it. So when I click this detach, all of that information disappears. It is now its own table. And so we're just going to walk through that again because it is such a good thing to know about, is this little dedupe trick. So we'll just add another page. So again, we're creating a summary table grouped by first and last name to create that list of unique registrants. Add the page. And then here in the creator panel, under that table tab, the data sub tab, and then we just click detach. No longer linked to that registrations table at all. I can delete some of these columns. We just want the name. But once you have this list created, there might be some other piece of data that you want from the original table. Like in this case, we'd probably want their email in this contact list. So we can use a lookup formula to pull that data. We're going to link the article on lookups in the chat. Lookups are super handy. We use them all the time, probably in every webinar, it seems like. So I'm going to add a new column for email. And we want to pull this email address that was related to the person's registration. So we want this detail here. All these new pages from creating that summary table. Okay, so hit equals to start entering a formula. And we tell it, where do we want to pull information from? What table? And that was this all registrations table. Start typing, and it's going to start suggesting things. Now we just want one item returned. We just want their email address once. That's it. So we can use lookup one, return one value. Now it's asking, what information do you want to match on? Well, we actually need to match on two things in this case. We want to match their first name, and we need to match their last name. We'll start with first name. So the first name from that table needs to match the first name from this table, but then we also need to match last name from that table to the last name in this table. When I do that, it's going to return the record ID. We need to tell it what bit of information we want. Specifically, we want this registration email. So I can go into this column, copy that column ID. And we use dot notation to pull it. So just dot and then add that column ID. And now we have their email. Incredibly handy. So we just want this to be a formula, really just to pull that initial information, but I do not want this to remain a formula column. We can convert this from a formula column to a data column. So all the values remain, but I can go in and edit it or do whatever I need. Under column behavior, just convert column to data. And now it's data. I can type into it and edit it to my heart's desire. So another little handy trick is to convert from formula to data. So that is everything for our webinar today. Obviously, it's open up for questions now, so feel free to post those in the chat. And while people are typing any questions you might have, I can show you something fun. Some of y'all may have seen a post about this in the community. It looks like we received a amazing open source contribution. Some punk ass werewolf created a function. It's called TASTEME, and it tells you if your data is tasty. So we will link the community post in the chat. It actually links to some Twitter fun where we've been messing around with it. We found that the werewolf is not a fan of American democracy or the 1800s, but it really loves Survivor's Eye of the Tiger. Who doesn't? I love it. It did approve of my honeymoon destination of Hawaii, so that was cool. But we do have a question, but after that, we'll see if it found any of today's topics tasty. So the question is, I don't understand what.
I understand. I can, maybe I
Okay.
should do it for the recording because I'm doing it in text, but that's not helpful for people who watch this on YouTube. So this normally happens really with data cleaning and importing is the only time I've ever used it. So say you have a big table of orders and one of those columns is customers, but customers can buy multiple things. So that customer is showing up over and over and over and over in the customer column. And now you're setting things up in Grist and you need to create a table of who your customers are because you're trying to build a CRM. You can take that orders table, summarize by customer in order to get every unique value using a summary table, and then detach. So it's a really easy way to start your customer table to find all those unique values. That's why it's part of the data cleaning webinar. That's the only time I've really ever used it, but it's really helpful for that.
Yeah, it definitely is helpful at the beginning. I don't think I've come across it once my data's set up either. So for this taste me function, I set this up before the webinar so we could just enter in our topics and see if it finds it tasty. With Taste Me, if you guys want to try this at home, it is just Taste Me and oops, don't click the green text, it'll take you to the info. I mean, that's helpful. But then you enter the food, which would be topics, and then it'll return true or false back to you. I modified ours a bit so that if it's true, it tells you it's werewolf approved. If it's not true, it says no way. So we can test out some of our topics. So the first topic today was adding values to choice columns. Oops. Twice. He doesn't like that. Updating bulk values. No, didn't like that. All of this. Trigger formulas. No, he's not a fan of our learning today. he, she, it. It's a whatever the werewolf is. No way on split. Well, that's too bad. I like split. Okay, here we go. Filling in missing blank data. Maybe. Yes. Okay, the werewolf likes that. And then the last topic was deduping data. We'll see, does the werewolf like it? Yes. So most of our learning today was not werewolf approved. We have had way too much fun with this week. I know that, let's see. Here I can pull this one in. Here is the 80s test to see what 80s jams the werewolf liked. As you can see, Eye of the Tiger was tasty. There's also this fun one on cats to decide what cats are tasty. Lil Bub is yeah, and Colonel Meow also tasty. So if you are looking for fun, feel free to try out the Taste Me function. Again, it's just Taste Me and then put in your column into the parentheses. It'll tell you if your data is tasty. It's pretty fun. I did it on our honeymoon ideas. So here, it didn't like most of them, but it did like Hawaii, which is what we ended up picking. But I think the cats one might be my favorite. Been a blast. Any other questions? If not, you're free to go and try out Taste Me and tell us what data it finds tasty. It says grist is not, well, that's mean. Grist is not tasty.
It doesn't like grist, but it does like VisiCalc. So old school.
Okay.
It's an old school werewolf.
Yeah, but it doesn't like the 1800s.
Yeah, it's very confusing.
But definitely check out the community post, and you can share little screenshots of what y'all do, because obviously we've had too much fun with this. Oh, you're very welcome. I'm glad it's been helpful. I definitely use the access rules webinars all the time myself. Constant. Anytime I need to write an access rule, I go watch Anais.
I just do trial and error, make mistakes, troubleshoot. No, I've gotten really quick at them, but yeah. Oh, that's good. The webinar
Smart.
or the article?
Yes, we all just watch Anais all day on the webinar. I for sure, hands down, the most useful webinar. Any big news coming? I don't think so. Anais, do we have any big news coming?
I mean, there's things we're working on. Taste Me version 2. I don't know. You gotta talk to the werewolf. We're not in charge of the werewolf. It does what it wants. So I mean, the big things we're working on now that are exciting is we are working on the AI part of this. And then even though this is small, I love the fact that we're just improving the formula editor for the AI editor. You know how you can edit in the cell or in the creator panel for a formula? You can pop it out, or we want to be able to pop it out so you can go to different pages and tables to grab whatever you need from other tables for your formula without losing the formula. So, but yeah, so we're working on AI for writing Python formulas, and we are working on webhooks UI, which has been requested by everyone who uses webhooks.
Yes.
And everyone who thinks they might use webhooks. So, yeah, and other things as well, but I think those are the two most asked for.
If you haven't seen, there's this wonderful expand section. So if you
Oh,
have a lot of widgets on your screen, which I load things up with widgets, this helps you expand them if you just want to take a look at more data. Another thing that we've had recently is column descriptions.
oh yeah.
So if you just have a short little header here, or maybe some of your columns have very similar headers, but they're all slightly different and it just makes sense based on where they're located, you can add a description. So that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's still work in progress. That's being done in a few stages because part of that was from an open source contribution from the ANC team. You may have seen them in our newsletter. They're part of a French agency and they help out with Grist a lot. So that's in two pieces. So that's still missing a part. But yeah, so there's column descriptions and can we display a widget only on a page? Style light. Do you want to show them style light? It's not a single widget. It's a way to show a page.
But you could just have a single widget on a page. Just it depends how the widget is set up. Like if you have a like a notepad widget,
Yeah.
I've seen that where people will put the notepad as the single thing on the screen. The trick with that is before you do that, create the table and create a record in the table for the notepad to write to. But you can do things like that. The style light is, I think, just add it.
Yeah, question mark style equals light. Pretty sure. Yeah,
Yep.
so this just gets rid of the page thing on the left and it gets rid of the creator panel on the right. And this is really helpful if you go to embed this in an iframe, it's still editable and access rules will apply. That's
And you
another
can
little
still
hack.
add stuff to it. If you want it to be read only, it's embed equals true.
Yeah. Then it's read only. And this is
And
good
then
for embedding on websites. It is a Zen mode, yeah. Maybe we should just make a button to go into style light. It's just a thing we know, and some people who sometimes embed Grist and iframes know about it, but yeah,
it
that would be.
has made its way into our documentation at least. So it is at least there, but super
A button
fun.
for Zen mode. That's a good idea.
Zen mode. I like that.
Also, Jordan, description showing in graphs, that's not happening yet. The second part of what's happening now is when you add a description to tables or card widgets, there's a little eye icon. It's being built that basically appears next to the header. So on hover, you see it like a tooltip. So hopefully that'll be out before the next newsletter. And the other thing we're working on, we can do a sneak peek, is collapsing widgets. If you want to show them, I think it's in prod. It's just, there's still a few pieces of it missing. We do everything in little pieces. Yeah. Look at that.
Boom.
It's a button now at the top.
Oh, you can't collapse all the widgets, but
no, yeah, it must have one remaining, but
boom.
So
exciting. Or we'll go to,
so,
I have
Oh boy.
My wedding planning document has so many things. So you can collapse, or expand and make it big. So many choices. But yeah, you can click it. If you just want to keep it up there and it's something you don't really use, just click on it when you need to see it or add it to the page. But so much fun.
Yeah. And that just needs a few tweaks before it's going to be announced.
Pass parameters for a widget. Do you mean like filters? Because you can certainly filter a widget.
Oh, normally the way that I do that is I duplicate the whole page and then just delete what I don't need. Great. Do you mean duplicating widgets?
If you wanted to duplicate, like I duplicate pages a lot, and then you could delete whatever you want. So then you still have those, like if you have widgets that you've spent a lot of time setting up and you just want bits of it, You can just copy the page and delete what you don't need, if that's what you mean. Mm. I don't think there would be any way to do that. I think you would just have to hide columns and just include the columns you want. But if you have, again, if you have a page that's similar and you just want to change out some columns, you could just duplicate the page, but then hide and unhide columns.
Yeah, though this almost sounds like you're duplicating a table. If what's important is how many columns are in that table, you can duplicate tables from raw data. I think a lot of people don't know that.
So if you go to raw data here, and then just duplicate table. Now this creates an actual copy and it's unlinked. So, and you can choose to copy all the data in the structure. So if you want to keep the same data, typically people don't. So by default, it's unchecked. I'll check it. And so now I've got this copied table. I can delete a bunch. And now if I go to the original table, it's all still there. They're completely unrelated when you duplicate a table from raw data.
Mhm.
Now, when you duplicate over here, it is the same data. Here, I duplicated the page. It's just another view of the same data. So if I go and delete a bunch of columns, it's deleted here. And so that's the difference. Here, same data, access or raw data, and you duplicate, then it's completely separate.
Mhm.
Okay, if you're using the same widget, you would have the data already in tables, but then I would duplicate the page, but then click on the widget and you could just change the widget and select different data. So you still have the same widget, just with that new data. This one's kind of hard because it doesn't have much data. Yeah, so I could duplicate this page. And this is using students. I could just change the widget to now take on families. And so now it's just changed in the widget, but the layout's still the same. It just changes the widget. That might be the faster way to do it for you. Awesome. Any other questions?
Okay, I think that's it. Thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you guys, and
Right.
go have fun with the TASTEME function.
Mhm. Thank
Bye
you.
guys.
Bye.